Welcome to the Nick and Ron podcast. This is Nick and Ron.
This is Jacob Wallace.
Thank you, Jacob Wallace. Today we're talking about Into the Night. Crazy movie with a lot of actors you wouldn't expect. Right, Sean?
Yeah, a movie from 1985 featuring Jeff Goldblum and Michelle Pfeiffer. We stumbled across this on Pluto TV, I think was what we were watching.
No, it's actually Tubi, which is really cool. Like if you want to watch like B movies or whatever, like they have sci-fi and everything else. It's kind of set up like Netflix, except all the movies are there's good ones thrown in with the bad ones.
The list is actually extremely extensive. This isn't like we're not shilling for Quibi right now. What is it called? Tubi?
What?
We're not shilling for Tubi. They haven't paid us anything. But I was actually really amazed when just cycling through the list really does seem like it just never ends with these movies. But a lot of them are B-list or C-list movies, or they're extremely old. Now, we stumbled across this one because it had a big picture of Jeff Goldblum's face. And it was called Into the Night. And Nick was like, well, stop on that for a second. And we started reading the description. We realized it was a comedy.
We didn't know Jeff Goldblum was going to lead us to more gold.
So we were like, let's laugh at this for a few minutes. We'll give it 10 minutes. We'll turn it off. 2 hours later, we realized we had watched the entire movie, and we both still thoroughly enjoyed the insane journey that this movie takes you on. And I'm amazed that at the age of 33, I had never heard of this movie at all.
Sean, you kept repeating it over and over. Man, I really love the film, like the production of this, the visuals, or the way they shot it.
Well, it's shot in a way of it's almost shot like the movie 48 Hours, where it was it's a more serious type of comedy. It's a black comedy. It's very grounded in a more realistic world for the most part. The main characters don't get silly as the movie progresses. The world around them proceeds to get sillier. And I think that's what really made this movie more interesting.
Well, I think it's because Jeff Goldblum kind of just when he catches his wife or whatever I think the rest of the day is just him letting God or whatever take hold of the whole entire situation of his whole life. He just he just lets go. He just kind of just lets go.
We need to backtrack a little bit because he's introduced as this character who he hasn't been sleeping, right? He knows something in his life.
Oh yeah, he constantly just wants to go to sleep the whole movie.
So he hasn't slept in 3 weeks, we find out, through just casual conversations with his friend. The first cameo, which is Dan Aykroyd, isn't in the movie for very long, the first 20 minutes. And
he's in a car on the highway.
Yeah, they play work friends. So it's his one friend from work. And Jeff Goldblum's just kind of out of it. And he keeps just dazing out. And we find out he hasn't slept in 3 weeks. He has horrible insomnia. And you get the idea that he just doesn't really know where he is, what he's doing. He's lost the thrill of life.
The whole time I was just man, it's not cool to see Jeff Goldblum going through this.
He was really sad.
Yeah.
And I was I hope good things happen for Jeff Goldblum. And Nick pointed something out because the reviews on this movie are awful. It has a 30% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. 38%. The ones that gave it semi-positive reviews focused mostly on the cinematography and the amount of cameos that they were able to squeeze into this. And we'll get to more of that later. But so Jeff Goldblum, he's messing up at work. He falls asleep during an office meeting, and he finds out he's been messing up for a week at work. And so he goes home to get some sleep, and he finds out his wife's cheating on him. The rest of the first act is really him just dazed, confused, and not really knowing what he's going to do. So in the middle of the night, he wakes up and he goes to the airport. And what I like about that is that they never really explain.
Why is that somewhere you would go? He went up into a parking garage at an airport.
At an airport. I kind of like that they didn't really explain it. But you get dumped or you're in a situation where you find out your partner's cheating or something. Sometimes your brain's just I just have to go do a thing. And you just wind up, I don't know, sitting at a bowling alley and you don't even bowl or something crazy like that. So I kind of get that, and I like it from a realistic standpoint. From a movie standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. But they do point that out later in the movie with Michelle Pfeiffer, where she's why are you at the airport? Michael Piper. Yeah, so he runs into Michael Piper, and out of nowhere, her boyfriend gets stabbed. She starts running. And the guys are chasing her. She finds Jeff Goldblum trying to start his rusty old car. And she jumps in, and the action adventure thriller comedy.
And this movie really
goes.
makes you hate Michelle Pfeiffer at certain points. Like, why can't Jeff Goldblum just take a nap? Why are you taking advantage of him this much?
They did bring up, and I was worried that they were going to drop that early in the movie.
Like, she should have just been like, hey, we'll go to a motel and you can take a nap for like an hour.
Because Nick, the movie had to happen. And he couldn't sleep.
I know, but it's a movie.
He couldn't sleep.
It's a movie. The nap could have taken.
No, because remember when they fell asleep under a ditch at some point? Everywhere they go, every time she thinks she's safe, for some reason they've found her and they're chasing after her and they want her. We find out she has like gems or something. Every single time Jeff Goldblum is about to go home and back to his normal life, he gets roped right back into helping her. And every time it's like interesting. Like they don't repeat the same series of events more than once other than the fact that he gets roped back in. Again, the movie really keeps driving itself forward and the movie is packed with cameos. We have David Bowie. We have Jim Henson. We have David Cronenberg. The director, Michael Landis, who's directed like Blues Brothers.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Every TV show and movie that you can think of from your childhood. What was that one? The college one I just mentioned?
Animal House.
Animal House, yeah. So very influential. That's one of the reasons that he was able to get people like David Cronenberg and David Bowie and Jim Henson and Dan Aykroyd. They show up for 5 minutes and they're gone. I didn't even realize that Jim Henson was in this movie. He has such a tiny cameo.
Jim Henson, if I can remember right,
I think he was at a phone booth.
He's a guy on the phone. Yeah.
David Bowie literally shows up, threatens Jeff Goldblum, puts a gun in his mouth, and then dies.
So, Sean, what about the scathing reviews of the critics?
One of the critics had the critical reception on this was just awful. Basically, they were saying that it was a boys' club where it was just directed by, Michael Landis, and it was a movie made basically for his friends because they would all sit around and watch each other's movies. And I get, you look at cinema at the time and he wasn't very far off, but at the same time is a major disservice to what they accomplished with this movie, in my opinion. One of the reviews that is on the Wikipedia page, which is just absolutely insane, because I would say this movie is much more tasteful than like an American Pie or anything that comes out later in the 90s. One of the critics, what was his name? Oh, this was actually it was Roger Ebert. So, one of the most world-renowned critics of the 20th century said, if I had been an agent for one of the stars, like Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Pfeiffer, Richard Farnsworth, or Catherine Harold, I think I would have protested in front of the office that Landis was engaged in cinematic autoeroticism and that my clients were getting lost in the middle of a family reunion. That is one of the most WTF reviews.
He hated it so bad he went through it in his head and made up something.
Again, there's a couple scenes. Michelle Pfeiffer, she's naked for a split second. Again, it's not like gratuitous. It's like she changes in the other room. There is a scene with a girl on a boat. It's a little pervy, but it was not anything more than the movies at the time were. And really with those, like, there's only really a couple scenes like that. You can cut those scenes out almost entirely. It wouldn't affect the overall narrative or the comedy of the movie. They're really just there for tasteful eye candy kind of a thing. Other than that, the movie's really well directed. There's not a single...
Oh, so this isn't an advertisement, but go buy yourself some Wahlberg burgers.
Wahlberg?
Yeah, man. They're at Deerberg's, and they're from the Wahlberg family. The burgers, I know, are really freaking good. I don't know what...
So Mark Wahlberg, Marky Mark.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with Into the Night. We've gone off the rails again, guys. Mark Wahlberg's brother has a burger joint in, Boston, probably, because they're from Boston. And they make wicked good burgers. Yeah, but you told me that you bought Wahlburgers, and my first thought was like, oh, burgers from Walmart. And I made a joke. I'm like, aha, are those Marky Mark's brothers burgers? And you were like, yeah, they are.
Dude, I wish I would have looked this up before the podcast, but
no,
really
their name
good.
is Mark Wahlberg.
I know, but they're called Wahlburgers.
Anyway, no, Jeff Goldblum. I can see how, if you didn't know where Jeff Goldblum was going, this was done in 1985, 3 years before both of us were born. A time before we had Jurassic Park. We get that sexy cameo with Jeff Goldblum shirtless after he gets attacked by the Tyrannosaurus. And this was before Mission Impossible. No, that's Independence Day.
Independence Day. I was about to say it before you.
Yeah, Independence Day. I should have known that the 4th of July just happened. So anyway, that's really when...
By the way, stop shooting so many fireworks all the time. Within reason. Come on.
No, fireworks are meant to be unreasonable.
Only if they're like a city display of fireworks.
In fact, I think people around the world should make...
People don't know how to do it. Like, there's like over 100 fires in the area alone. It was like a thing they had to deal with. Anyway, fireworks are cool.
I like fireworks.
Just don't burn people's house down, that's all.
Don't burn your own house down.
Yeah.
This is a good movie. Check it out. It's free if you have Fruby. What is it called?
Tubi, Tubi. Just search it in the app thing.
Yeah, look it up on your app store.
The app thing.
The app thing. It took us about 2 hours to watch it. I think the movie's actually a little shorter than that, but we had to keep pausing it. And
no, the movie was like a solid 2 hours and 8 minutes.
Oh, really? Because it took us a really long time to get through it.
Well, yeah, because we kept pausing it and it was 2 hours.
Oh. Yeah,
we ordered food in that whole thing.
Yeah, and every time we'd pause it, because of the way the app is set up, it like sometimes kicks
Sean, guess what? Nick and Sean podcast news. Urgent breaking news.
Breaking news. Live with Nick in the studio.
Live with Nick and John. Yeah, I got a knife set.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like a pretty nice one. Should be coming pretty soon. Oh. So now I'll have steak knives.
Nick has had one single steak knife.
I'm not even sure that it comes with like a thing to put the knives in, but I'm going to have knives.
He has one sharp knife, and that's it.
Oh
and it's not even a steak knife. It's a
paring knife.
It's a paring knife, right? And it took me forever to convince him of the importance and necessity of having like a full range kitchen set, especially if you want to do some at home cooking.
Well, I live by myself, so having that knife is really all I need to eat a steak. But when I have Sean over, it's a whole other issue because I have to eat my steak with a butter knife.
I also live by myself, and I have 4 chef's knives, an entire knife set, and then I also have a few additional knives that I bought on top of that for very specific tasks. I know the importance of having a fully stocked kitchen.
Yeah. You can, dude, we kind of veered off, but you can actually put pictures for all this. And even a picture for this, like just a picture of a picture in Infinity Pictures.
I could probably do that. And if I don't, that's why you're seeing the thing you're seeing right now. Anyway, Jeff Goldblum, Michelle Pfeiffer, watch Into the Night. I did not like the title of this movie because I get it.
Dude, it was perfect. It was like, dude, you could use like 98% of this movie for like vaporwave videos. It was like VHS gold, man.
It's shot on film. I love the old style of filmmaking, of shooting comedies like this. This would have a very, very tiny budget.
Jeff Goldblum's car was depressing, though. A little piece of shit.
It was like a Pinto or something.
It was like a Pinto?
It was like a Pinto. Yeah. But he does steal like so Michelle Pfeiffer's brother is like a Elvis impersonator, and they totally steal his car halfway through the movie.
And she's like, Elvis wouldn't do this.
Yeah, she's like, apparently her character slept with Elvis, which there's several jokes that definitely date this movie. First off, the inability to find a cell phone. You know how they say, you couldn't make this movie today? This movie wouldn't make any sense if you made it today, because you could literally just walk up to the nearest person and be like, hey, can I borrow your phone? I need to call an Uber. But back then, you had to go find a phone. And like
a payphone.
It is a plot point.
Actually, what would happen if you didn't know the number to the local taxi where you were?
Well, most payphones had phone books.
Actually, if you're in a city, there's taxi.
And there's a lot of always like they put signs. They used to put just taxi signs inside phone booths. But like there was another joke he makes at the very beginning. Dan Aykroyd asks him, "So when was the last time you actually got some good sleep?" Oh, it must have been around 1980. Haha, that's funny. And then I realized that this wasn't made recently. So I had to look it up, and I was like, 1985. I mean, the joke's still kind of funny. Not having slept in 5 years is a lot different from not having slept in, 30.
I'm kind of grateful I wasn't born in, the 50s or 60s, because the only thing that came out of that was, really good music.
The 50s and 60s would have been fine.
Dude, you could have been, whipped and by, Catholic teachers and,
Oh, I mean, I still had Catholic teachers. They didn't hit us, but they were definitely still mean.
Hey, Sean, can you put a squirrel every time I swear? Like a squirrel noise?
I can have to find a squirrel noise. Or a noise that sounds appropriate to a
Or something silly, something cool.
Like a squirrel.
Yeah.
Or this noise. Do you like that noise? I can also use this noise. Nick can't hear any of these noises because I added them in post.
Aren't you glad we're talking about the movie the podcast is about?
I mean, there's not too much to say. I mean, it's a comedy. Anything that like
all
really,
we're saying is just watch it.
I don't want to ruin too much.
This is an unofficial promotion for Into the Night, 1985.
Well, and that's what I was saying about the title. The title sounds like I thought it was going to be like a weird stalker movie or something like that when I scrolled past it, because the movie box art is like half of Jeff Goldblum's face with like a
he's
nighttime,
like half in the dark,
and it's very serious looking. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be a movie where Jeff Goldblum like is a B-list serial killer or something. And this took The Fly was I think 1980, so this was 5 years after like Jeff Goldblum was famous at this point, but he wasn't Jeff Goldblum famous at this point.
Goldblum looked like he was in a car for 23 or 24 hours the whole movie.
He did. And his exhaustion, I believed that Jeff Goldblum was exhausted throughout this entire movie. And maybe he just was. It definitely came across like a guy who hadn't slept in a few days and who was really just trying to like understand what the hell was going on. And that did add a lot of comedy, even though his character had very mild development. By the end of the movie, he figures his life out. It has a happy ending.
Yeah, and he wakes up in the morning and she's taking all the money, but he leaves he leaves an envelope of money in his coat.
He thinks that she leaves and she's like, would you take me to the airport? And they have a big bag of money. We just assume everything's going to be okay after that. He never goes back to his wife. There's no resolution for that. I had said to Nick at the beginning of this movie, I was like, if Jeff Goldblum doesn't get some sleep by the end of this movie, I'm going to be so mad. And the last like 2 scenes of the movie are him passing out in a bed and sleeping for almost 3 days. That alone, just knowing what it's like to sleep for 3 days, made me feel good at the end of this movie, because I was like, yeah, I feel well rested for Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, Into the Night, check it out. 1985. I mean, if you hate it, then sorry. My bad. Me and Nick both liked it too.
And by the way, we've done a few more podcasts of movies from the 80s. I think Better Off Dead was 1985, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, most of the movies we've done, I think, have been from like 1980 to 95, 4 or 5 era. We'll do some more recent ones, but we'll also do some more older ones. We have some that we haven't reviewed yet. We've taken some time off the last couple weeks. We wanted to get back in here. We wanted to talk a little bit about this movie that we both really enjoyed. And hopefully you'll give it a like, a thumbs up, and hopefully you'll tune in for our next podcast.
Thank you for coming to the Tabitha and Stephanie podcast.
I'm Tabitha.
I'm Stephanie.
And you are great.
Keep being great. Be excellent to each other.
Party on, dude.
Tune in to the Nick and Sean podcast for more stupid videos with Nick and Sean.